Hi, y'all. Thanks for tuning back in to That's a Wrap. I'm Jalen.
I'm Naja.
I'm Kenny.
I'm Siani.
And I'm Julian.
And this week, we'll be discussing a film that took us all by storm, Jordan Peele's Get Out. This film has several components that dissect and hyperanalyze how it feels to be subjected to racism in America and does so through a horror and thriller lens. In order to dig a little bit deeper, we're going to start off with the actors who portrayed the characters on the big screen. The casting for this film was extremely well done, and the actors settle into their roles almost eerily, and they keep the audience engaged throughout the entire film. Daniel Kaluuya, is that how you say his name? Kaluuya?
Yeah, I think it's Kaluuya.
Kaluuya? I don't know why I said Kaluuya. I'll edit that out. Daniel Kaluuya stars as Chris Washington, a lead actor. He's a young Black photographer who's invited to his white girlfriend's parents' house, the Armitages. Daniel received recognition for his work in the chilling series Black Mirror on Netflix, and that's how he landed this role. He's convincing in the role as Chris because he plays a boyfriend devoted to his relationship, but as the monstrosities of the household unveil, his will to live and keen strategy take the audience by heart. Allison Williams is his leading lady. She stars as Rose Armitage, and she's the daughter of the Armitage family. And she is casted as the fake concerned white girlfriend with ulterior motives throughout the entire film. And her performance was uncanny. She's known for her roles in the show Girl, as well as, I want to say, Peter Pan on Broadway. And in the show Girl on HBO, she plays the fake concerned friend. So this role is not new to her. But it's pivotal in this film because she was able to officially entrap her boyfriend with no regret or moral concern. One of her most memorable scenes is the moment when she's drinking her milk separate from her Fruit Loops, and that was supposed to be a nod to keeping the colors separate from the whites. Bradley Whitford stars as Dean Armitage, and he's the neurosurgeon and also Rose's father. Dean is a character who performs the brain surgery that removes the capability of the rightful owner of their body to control it. And this character is known for the scene where he's first meeting Chris and he's like, oh yeah, like I love Obama. I would have voted him for a third term if I could have. So that's kind of a nod to how white people think that they're not racist, or they try to act like they're not racist by saying strange political statements that are supposed to be in solidarity with us. Moving forward, Catherine Keener is Missy Armitage. She's a psychiatrist and she is the Armitage matriarch. So Missy's most memorable moment is where she's having a conversation with Daniel, and she has her teacup and she's stirring it, and the spoon is clinking the cup, and next thing you know, boom, Chris is in the sunken place. What else about her? So her motive, like her portion of the Armitage family, is specific to sinking the, I guess, hypnotizing all of the patients so that they're in the sunken place and unable to control themselves. And each person in the Armitage family has a specific role in kind of stealing people from their bodies. A couple other important people in this film include Lakeith Stanfield. He plays Andre Hayworth, and he was a person who had gone missing 6 months prior to when the setting takes place in the film. And then he's discovered on their property, but he had already undergone the neurological transference through surgery performed by Dean. There's also Marcus Henderson as Walter. Walter is the groundkeeper. And his most memorable portion of the film is when he's running super fast straight towards Chris and then turns at the last second. And it's later unveiled that this character's body is also under control for use of his physical endurance. We also have Betty Gabriel as Georgina, who was the housekeeper, but then we find out that she's also under hypnosis and she is really the grandmother. And finally, one of my favorites in the film, Laurel Howery as Rod Williams. He's a TSA airport officer, but he's also Chris's best friend. Rod Williams offers comedic relief via phone call throughout the tense unfolding events of the Armitage household, and ultimately was the savior at the end of the film. Being that Rod is a police officer, his arrival in his squad vehicle at the end of the film seems as a defeat, as if the white family would get away with their crimes and the black man was left to answer for it all. But luckily, Rod and Chris make it out of the perplexing situation together. So those are a few of the cast members. But moving forward, we can talk a bit about how the script animates the storyline and carries us throughout the narrative. Naja?
Yes, so today I'll be talking about the script, and I would definitely say that Jordan Peele definitely established a few themes throughout the script, but I'm going to focus on a couple of them today. So Jordan Peele meticulously established important themes and parallels in the script about racial injustice by embedding them into the scenes. Now, when looking at the original script, in the beginning of the movie, Rose's family is having a conversation about Disney World, yet the focus is on outward appearances. So when the little boy Joshua speaks about how Mickey Mouse is actually someone else inside of the costume playing Mickey Mouse, his dad establishes that it is indeed Mickey Mouse. And also, when the father notices a young Black man jogging outside of his house, he seems to cringe uncomfortably. So these set up a parallel for later on in the movie, which emphasizes physical appearances rather than understanding who someone really is inside. And this is also a similar conflict in America, where Black people are savagely judged for the way that they look and are constantly penalized for it, even though they may not have done any harm or committed a crime. And another thing that I wanted to talk about throughout the movie was Jordan Peele's use of silence. So actually in the movie, Jordan Peele establishes themes by manipulating how silence was used amongst the Black characters, even though they really had a lot to say. And it ended up becoming one of the most powerful portions of the script. So we have the silent auction that was done to establish who would receive the main character, Chris's brain, after his procedure was finished. We also had that once the Black characters were hypnotized, they were silent throughout the entire movie, except when the camera flashed on them, which would help them to reveal their truth. And the silence is used in the movie to hide the reality and create an unnerving atmosphere, similar to how Black people can be silenced in America. And so although there are plenty of themes throughout the script, I just wanted to highlight those two important themes and how they have similar parallels. And it is important to recognize them throughout the United States and the way that Black people are treated.
Thanks, Naja. Of course, we'll need Kenny to address the costuming and setting designed by the crew to gain further understanding of the piece as a whole. Kenny?
Hey y'all. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about costume design and setting. Firstly, I'm gonna talk about costumes. I feel like they played a very important role in this movie. The head costume designer for this movie was a woman by the name of Nadine Haters, and she does a lot like with color imagery throughout the movie. So I felt like that was very powerful. The first character I'm gonna talk about is Chris, who's the main character. Obviously, when we first see him, like he's dressed in like blues, more comfortable clothing, like and the blue and red imagery come into juxtapose a lot, like you see in most movies. It's either blue and red, like they're used, black and white, same thing. But he starts off blue, comfortable clothes, denim, like just your average stereotypical young Black male, however he dresses. And then at the beginning, his girlfriend Rose tells him about how he has to bring like his cozy clothes, so when they get there, like he can change and like be different and stuff. And come to find out, his cozy clothes are just like gray clothing that he's comfortable in, but that represents like the thin line between black and white, like how he's kind of at this intersection now because he's being pulled by both sides. And also it kind of represents like the dulling of his personality as he gets there. Like they're trying to take away everything about him that makes him who he is. Like they're trying to replace him. So it's kind of just like a foggy type of fading thing. You can feel like the blue fading into the gray. And I think that another scene that shows like a lot of good like clothing imagery and color imagery was the party scene. And I actually watched a separate interview that Nadine Haters did about this because I really liked this scene like the first time I saw it, even just outside of this class. But in that scene, that's when we see Lakeith Stanfield's character Andre at the party, and he's dressed like somebody straight out like like the 1900s, and you can definitely start to see the dichotomy between black and white. Like he's more so a part of the Armitage family than he is like resonating with Chris in that moment. Like him and Chris, like there's a very large juxtaposition. Like it kind of feels like Lakeith Stanfield's character Andre has kind of regressed back, to like how we were formerly treated, and that's the whole point of this movie. Is the whole social commentary on the fact that we're still not treated how we need to be. So, and also in that scene, you see a lot of red being worn by Dean. Dean, he's wearing a red pocket square in that scene. Rose, she's wearing like a red striped shirt, kind of reminiscent of like Where's Waldo. Missy, she's wearing like a red ring. Rose has like on red loafers and all that. And in the analysis I was watching from Nadine Hayter, she said that she did that intentionally. That way they can convey like the feels and themes of like the secret society that they had. Like, you know, red is like an alluring color, like it's trying to show like how they're trying to draw people in, suck the blood out of them, if you will. And I thought that was just a very interesting way for her to balance that. Cause like I said, Chris, you see him with the blues, you see them with the reds. And the next characters I want to talk about for costume are Walter and Georgina. This was the groundskeeper and the maid. And they're kind of dressed up kind of like dolls in a way, like they're manipulated in a way where it's like they seem, not that they seem less than human, but like their human qualities are kind of, you know, dimmed, not so much at the forefront, like they're trying to be made seem kind of more robotic-ish. So, and then with Walter, he's dressed in a lot of like greens and browns and stuff like that. And since he's a groundskeeper, that makes sense. But that also kind of represents like how he's starting to fade and like blend into like the surroundings of what's going on there because he's been there for so long that they just fully consumed him at that point. And then lastly with Dean and Missy, like just overall throughout the film, they're dressed as, you know, the stereotypical East Coast mom and dad, you know, glasses, academia, like they really seem like they're from the Hamptons. Like, so she did a really good job conveying that. And then to switch gears from costume to setting, the main production designer was Rusty Smith, and he did a very good job of, you know, designing the sets and showing the juxtaposition. Because in the beginning, like I said, Chris, he comes from like New York City, which is like the hustle and bustle, like everything's hectic and chaotic. But now he's at the Armitage House, which is in upstate New York, and that's for anybody who lives in New York, you know, it's a very big distinction between upstate New York versus New York City. So that's showing like how he's driving away from his old ways and now he's entering to like this new life with the Armitages and stuff like that. And the house is also in an extremely secluded area, which helps facilitate the plot of when Lil Rel's character eventually has to drive all the way out there. It makes it a journey as opposed to him just being able to come get his friend quickly. And then Jordan Peele also talked about like how for this whole movie he wanted to use idyllic landscapes instead of just stereotypical scary places. Like, yeah, you've seen movies where it's haunted houses or abandoned buildings or the butcher shop, stuff like that. But he was like, no, the real scary places are like these good Christian neighborhoods where you think things aren't really happening. But for us, these are just as scary places. So I thought that was really good for him to put in. And the last setting I want to talk about is the sunken place. Now we hear it every day, not every day, but you hear it used more literally, slang like, oh, I'm in the sunken place, this, that, and third. But the sunken place in this movie obviously just represents, you know, them being detached. They no longer can control their body. The white people have took over their brain. So it kind of represents a loss of self, but it's like a dreary place. Your voice can't be heard. Like, and it just overall represents the realities of being a Black person in America.
Thanks, Kenny. Naturally, the music scoring of a film is equally as important as any other component. Let's dive into that, Siani.
Yeah, so music has always been something that evokes emotion and it really ties into scenes that you really want your viewer to feel. So, starting off, I just wanted to talk about who actually scored the film. And it was Michael Abels, who was like specially picked by Jordan Peele to not only score this, but also have some of his music composed especially for the film. So, unlike other films where there's music that's used that music that already exists, things that are already listened to by people. The music for this film was specifically made for this film, specifically made for these scenes. And I feel like that really stood out because I feel like that makes it even more special and it makes it even more tailored to each scene, which I feel like emphasizes the themes even more. It really provides like eerie feelings and just really builds that suspense in those scenes. But not only was music composed by Michael Abels, but it's between Michael Abels, Timothy Williams, and the famous Childish Gambino with his song Redbone that is very well known even before the film, but I feel like the film made it even more popular. And it's funny because that song is one of the songs that's played before all of the tragic events. So that transition from the modern song that we all know to music that's specifically tailored to these scenes really brings out that theme. So as I stated before, the scoring fits that scene, but specifically for things like finding the keys for that scene or surgery prep for that scene. It really makes it, like I said, tailored to that, even with Georgina text. So like I said, it's not like other films where you just find music that you think will fit when you're scoring. It's especially tailored, and he was specifically picked by Jordan Peele to do so. Um, but overall, I feel like that's what makes the music choices in this film the best because, like I said, especially curated. And I feel like that's what distinguishes each scene from each other because it evokes a different feeling, but they're all very eerie. They all evoke the same suspense and suspicions that we have. And I just love that about this movie.
Thanks, Yanni. Without camera work and editing, the emotion of the film wouldn't have been as impactful. Julian, what are some of the choices the creators of Get Out made here?
Hello. Get Out is very. I'm tripping. I'm sorry. Cut that out. I'm straight. All right, let's get to it. All right, one of the choices that Jordan Peele made, the scene throughout the movie, it's made in Alabama. But one of the choices that he made for sure is that he did not want it to be known that it was in a red state or Alabama. He just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that it was in the South when it came to the setting. So he was very intentional about that on where it was. But some of the concepts that we've already talked about is the sunken place, which is being hypnotized and it seemed as you're falling into a black space and you need to catch yourself. It's like falling. Like if you've seen Get Out, you know that this is one of the main topics of people saying that a sunken place. It was one of the themes that was very caught and the attention was known. And the concept connects to a metaphor of like abduction or being held as like a prisoner. So that was a key concept within within the movie. Also, when it came to one of the camera angles, POVs were very important, point of views. And as talked about earlier as well, is when Chris, the main character, is seeing one of the individuals, he was a gardener, running straight to him and then taking a quick turn. He was, in his eyes, there was a sense of confusion, but as a audience, we could see in his point of view of the gardener coming straight towards him, like if he was going to run him over. And then at the last second, he turned. And then when Chris turned as well to see where he was going, it was nothing but trees. It was nothing but land. And he was confused. It was a sense of confusion. And this was early on in the movie. So as the audience, we didn't understand the full concept either. And we're like, what's going on? But as we touched on, once you get later into the movie, it's an understanding of that individual has no control of his body. So the sense of confusion at the beginning that ended up coming later to understanding. So another camera edit that was also emphasized was close-up shots. This occurs when individuals were being transitioned to the sunken place. So when it came to the sunken place, their eyes would get bloodshot and it would get foggy, as in like if they had no control over their body, their bodies would be stand still as well. So it would just be like they're just focusing, but don't really know what's going on, but they know that they're going into a sunken place and they feel like they're having an out of body experience, one could say. So within the camera angles, it showed that when they were hypnotized, it was a representation of extreme emotion and fear. Because when you're having a out of body situation, you don't know how to cope, you don't know how to deal with the situation. And being this is their first time at this place and being in that setting, they didn't know how to react. And within the editing, they made it seem like it was just fear, very fearful, and that has to do with the bloodshot eyes and the foggy eyes as well, just a sense of confusion. Yes, I would say those are the main things that when it came to editing and camera work, when it comes to angles. All in all, Get Out is not as scary as it was portrayed when it came to the trailers. However, it was rather interesting and captivating when it came to the specific details, when it came to camera, the editing, and as mentioned earlier, if you took a camera was a huge thing. If you took a picture, then it's like they snap back to reality within quick seconds and they would have like a cry for help. I know I'm talking a little bit about theme, but it kind of all ties together when it comes to theme, the cameras, the editing, because it all gets the emotional effect of the entire movie.
All of these elements make for a truly one-of-a-kind viewing experience. Let's circle back to the overarching psychological impact this film has. Get Out could be classified as a psychological horror because while it's based on true sentiments of racism, there are portions that make you question how far hatred could really carry someone. This film created conversation of racism in the horror genre in a way that hadn't been done before, a pivotal moment not only for Black directors and aspiring creators, but it caused cultural conversation as well.
I would say if we're taking it back to the overarching question in terms of like how is racism depicted in through films, I feel like for this film it shows the different ways in which racism can occur. There's more passive aggressive ways, but this just took it to a whole nother level. It shows like the subtle but equally as devastating, if not more devastating, way that it can be experienced. Because it's one thing to know what's coming at you. It's one thing to know that you might be called out of your name or you might be treated unequally. But for something to come like so out of left field that you don't even know that somebody would use your body or cherish your body over your humanity, that's a whole different turn. But it shows the extent to which it can go, and it has gone. In terms of this film, even if it's not true or it's not reality, it always puts that in the back of your head that that could be a reality or that could be something that's in the works or people are thinking about. So I just feel like that really shows like how we're valued, or how Black people in general are valued, or even people of color. We're more glorified for the things that we can do, our bodies, our endurance, our culture, rather than us as humans and like our humanity, things that really matter, that just, you know, make us like other people, because at the end of the day we are people. And yeah, I think that just says a lot about how we're viewed.
I would definitely agree with everything Siani said. What was interesting for me, the very first time I ever watched the movie, like when it first came out, I would say I went into it like, and I watched it like it was just like a regular scary movie, like expecting like jump scares, stuff like that. But I would say this most recent time when I watched it, and every time I've watched it since the first time, I've watched it more like a race film or a psychological film as opposed to just like a movie with like expecting jump scares and stuff like that. And I feel like each time I watch it, I pick up on a little bit of something new, and it's just really interesting to me like how it's categorized as like a scary movie, but really it's just depicting like the everyday realities Black people go through. It's just putting it in a way so that other audiences see like, wow, this is really something scary, like this is horrific, the things that we go through. So maybe it's good that, you know, it shines a light on it, and it might make other people realize, you know, maybe we should change some things, because like it's not good that people feel this way on a regular basis. But I definitely think it's thought provoking, and you pick up on something new every time you watch it.
Just to add on that as well, I would say I approached the movie the same way. Watching it the first time, I was like I feel like it got a lot of hype when it came out, when it came to the trailers and things such as that. So when I first watched it, I was just like, I don't know how I feel about this, because it really wasn't scary, but the plot was good. But then when I watched it 2 or 3 times, it was the psychological impact of like, it's a true movie that you have to watch it 2 times to fully grasp what the movie is trying to tell you, and how many themes that there are and how many real world situations is within the movie. And it's not horror. And that's why I was saying, like, it's really not a scary movie. It has some parts that could be categorized as scary or horror, but as a whole, I honestly think it's more informational than horror.
Yes, I definitely agree. I definitely think that the way that this film was made helps you really see each mindset or each side of people's mindset, um, especially like the difference between the white family and the Black people who were hypnotized. Also, piggybacking off of what Julian said, even though it might not have seemed like a thriller, like a typical scary movie, I think it's also scary to know that this is happening today. Like this could be reality. So I think that's something that was important, that was conveyed throughout the film.
All right, well, there you have it. Thank you guys for tuning in, and that's a wrap.